I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome, Barbara, and thank you for joining us today. I'm truly excited to have you as our guest in our podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I had the pleasure to meet Barbara during my sabbatical in California. And we both discover our passion about crafting transformative experiences and fostering and thriving business development. And upon on my return from US, I founded my own company, Bloom Mood. And Barbara has been always this close friend that is always there, helping and willing to know about how are you doing. And I'm really happy to have you in our podcast today, on our episode today. Thank you,
Oh,
Barbara.
thank you. I don't know if I've been helping, but it's been a pleasure to become such great friends, even just
Yeah.
over Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. So our conversations have been incredibly inspiring. And what I wish today is to share with our community our thoughts, your insights. And it's been a joy to have you here. So, Barbara, could you please introduce yourself uh, briefly?
Yeah, sure. So, Barbara Patchen, I am an organizational psychology practitioner, the founder and head coach of Moonlight Strategy, which I started in 2021. So we've been alongside
Yeah.
each other as we've started
Yeah.
these businesses. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, on 50 acres. We are aspiring farm people,
Yeah.
and I would say I am a loving friend, someone who loves to live in the gray space, have a lot of fun, and I'm really passionate about my life and what I do.
Yeah, you are. And you are wonderful. You are awesome. So, Barbara, you have set up your Moonlight Strategy company that is dedicated to guiding individuals and organizations through transformative transformations. How does your background in human-centric design helps you in addressing those changes?
Mm. It's a good question. So I think it's important to share a little background. So I got introduced while I studied organizational psychology in graduate school. I worked in corporate talent development, talent management,
Mhm.
OD. And then I got exposed to design thinking in 2012. So I was able to practice it for quite a long time. And then I moved into consulting in just design thinking practices, bringing innovation practices to corporations. And now with Moonlight Strategy, focusing on transformation. So I have this blend of both org psych and design thinking. And I think design thinking has taught me so much
Yeah.
about change. Most of the time in the design thinking process, at least 50%, we're focused on problem framing. We're focused on
Mhm.
empathy, truly understanding the experiences of others. And I think traditional change management is focused on what's our vision, what's our project plan, what are our
Mm.
KPIs, right? And there's some change around communication, but there's really not a lot of thought given to what it feels like to move through change.
Yeah.
And we all know it is tough, right?
Totally.
That emotional experience that we go through when there's ambiguity, when we're stressed, we oftentimes send ourselves into overdrive, right? We become a version of ourselves that we don't always reflect on later in love. And so that's really what human-centered design has brought to me, is a lot of empathy for what that experience is in change and how to design for that and equip people
Mhm.
to move through it powerfully on their own.
Yeah, that's impressive what you say, because in fact, I truly believe that in design thinking that sometimes we summarize like the two diamonds. And
Mhm.
I really believe that the first part of the process to really focus on empathy and really understand what our people are thinking, the people that we are designing for, what do they think, what do they feel, uh, as you were exactly saying. So what's really there beside designing the change, but
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
are they feeling, right? So that's something that
Totally. And
resonates.
Don't you think it's, I mean, in that moment too, where you're empathizing, we're understanding some unmet needs. And what I think is really interesting is when we're in that process of uncovering unmet needs, we can better understand the human experience and we can go a level deeper into why people aren't able to have those needs met. And it's sometimes that's systematic, but sometimes that's also individual. Sometimes that's personal.
Yeah.
And I think you can only understand that by putting yourself in another person's shoes.
Totally. Totally. That's the first step regarding this empathy.
Mhm.
So let's explore about cultural change because you are an
Mhm.
expert on change in organizations, on people. So could you share us a successful story that you have helped in order to shape a culture?
Sure. So I have worked with an organization over the last 10 years, multiple times in different ways, and now quite consistently. So in the beginning, it was just the two founders as they were
Uh-huh.
trying to navigate how are they working together. And now they're at over 65 people. Um, and I've learned, first of all, that I love that stage, right? Helping somebody from the beginning. So, what we did, a couple interesting things that I think really have helped shape and solidify their culture as they're growing so quickly is first naming the special sauce, right?
Mhm.
Why do your clients love you? What makes you unique? What is it that you bring to the table that no one else does? So
Mm.
we use that design process to really reveal that through employee interviews, through client interviews, and then in some ways codify it, right? And traditionally we think about that as values, right? For them, we thought about that as a starting place of ways of working. What are the ways that we work that are so unique that our clients keep coming back for? And
Wow.
then translating those into values. So that first piece of work, that foundational work that everybody needs to do, that's where we started. But of course, we all know that's never enough. You can't just write it down on paper and expect people to activate. So we did a lot of things. We focused on how do we bring this to life through performance, through reward systems. And
Mhm.
then most importantly, this is a remote company. And so we do 2 retreats per year.
Wow.
And those retreats, we do not focus on the content of work at all. We only focus on the context. How do we work? How are
On
we
the
reinforcing
relationship.
that?
Yeah.
On the relationships with each other,
Exactly.
on all these things that really just make them
Mm.
so special.
Mm.
So those are some important things. But one other thing I will say, a learning, is when you find a CEO or a senior leader that has a vision,
Hmm.
I have learned to do everything you can to help protect that vision, right?
Mhm.
And many times as a company grows, you have to make more space for more perspectives. And I
Mhm.
view my job as being the translator. How can we translate those
Mm.
other perspectives to make your vision come to life? Because so many people have a hard time having a clear vision. They have a
Yeah.
clouded vision. This example, I have a CEO who has a very clear vision,
Yeah.
and I'm his partner in translating that to so many
Yeah.
different viewpoints and people. So that's just an example. I'm so proud of them. They're such a cool company, and
Totally.
they've done a lot of work, and they keep it
Mm.
up on their own.
I love what you say about being a translator. Sometimes people ask us, "What do you do for a living?" So, what's your
Yeah.
job? What do you do? And I love how you stated of being a translator, which really means a lot, and really empathize that aspect of really understanding what's going on and really make people understand also
Totally.
what are the yeah. I love
What
cool.
What is your answer? What is your? Have you come up with your short answer when people ask you what you do?
Well, I'm having a tough job on that, because that's new to me also. So sometimes I enjoy saying that I am a designer and
Mm,
experienced designer, and
mm.
but then people don't know what it is. So it's like I'm just having fun about saying that I am an experienced designer, but people even understand less of what I'm doing. But that's true. I really love your context of, I mean, your, how do you say about being a translator also? I, so, That's fun.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean, especially in the world of design. We get introduced to this whole new set of terminology that the rest
Yeah,
of the world does not relate to. So that translation role, I think, becomes more and more important. The new skills that we get either from design thinking or org psych
yeah,
or OD, this just not the words of business. And so we have to be able to translate to different folks.
yeah. And Barbara, how do you navigate the resistance to change? Because that's something that it's tough. So um, how do you help your organizations towards it?
Well, the first thing is the hardest lesson is not taking it personally. And I think that's good for leaders. That's good for everybody to not take
Yeah,
it personally when you're trying to do a big change and you're having that resistance, because I think it clouds our vision. It makes us ineffective in helping to navigate the change. Because the reality is, when there's resistance to change, it's not personal to me. It's personal to the person who's resisting.
yeah.
It's personal to them, and so making space to name that that's occurring and letting people
Hmm.
figure out what it is that they are struggling with instead of just insisting that we all be the same and we accept things as they are. And I think that took some hard lessons. I'm not going to lie. That took me learning, like experiencing
Yeah.
my own resistance to change, to realize how deeply personal my
Mm,
resistance was, to then have empathy for other people. Right.
yeah.
Um, this I don't know about you, but for me, I'll give you an example. So I was in an organization that was going to go through a big organizational change, looking at the org chart, compensation, titles, right? I knew this
Hmm.
was occurring and I was highly resistant. And part of that I learned later is because I was so focused on safety.
Yeah.
What am I going to make? Is there going to be a reduction in my title or my salary? Right. I was so focused on that. And I realized, so as a young person, I didn't have resources. It was surprising that
Hmm.
I went to college. I always had to be fighting for whatever it is that I earned, right? And financial security was important to me. I wanted to be able to
Yeah.
provide for my family, right? Many of us feel that way. And so I felt that really intense urge to fight or
Uh-huh.
resist anybody that threatened that, right?
Hmm.
But upon reflection, when I really looked at that moment, I was safe. I had no debt. I paid off all my school loans, right? I
Yeah.
had no dependencies. I was living on my own. I was in a great spot to take risk and try something different. But my
Yeah.
body was telling me this isn't safe. Somebody's going to attack my resources, right?
Yeah.
And so it's me acknowledging that disconnect of a past version of myself that no longer is relevant to the current situation.
Hmm.
And so I give that example because that's personal. I don't expect people to share that in an organizational setting, but to at least acknowledge that the resistance that people are experiencing, they're emotional and they're
Mm.
deeply personal. And so we have to give people space for that.
Yeah. You're totally right. And I also see that when you create this intimacy, then there is more connection. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's everything about relationships. And when you are willing to undertake a change in an organization, you have to take care about those relationships. And when you bring this intimacy, as you said just now, about what's relevant for you, what's in it for you, and
Mhm.
you give this space for others also to share, then is when this connection appears, and
Right.
then you can have a more fulfilling life, and you can have more success and more confidence on yourself. So that's
Totally.
part of,
It,
yeah.
it
Yes.
takes a lot of maturity, though, I think, as leaders and
Mhm.
individuals to bring that vulnerability to
Yeah.
the workplace. And it's not always safe and it's not always appropriate. I'm not suggesting that it is in all circumstances, but it's brave. And I think both you and I know that on the other side is a happier, more peaceful, more exciting, and
Mm.
optimistic life.
Yeah.
So I personally know from experience that the potential is there. And I love advocating for that for other people.
Yeah. Beautiful. Great. So Going to another topic now, Barbara, because you are an expert on future of work.
Hmm.
So, what are those emerging trends that you foresee? You are based in the States, and here from Spain, we also always look at the States like, okay, what's going on there? And it's going to arrive later on to us. So, what's in it for you, and how would you say that are those emerging trends in the future of work that are
Hmm.
exciting you?
So I will say there are a couple things that excite me, and sometimes they are items that bring great stress to other people. So let me preface that because the first trend, I don't know if you've seen this a lot, but it's corporate people taking multiple jobs.
Uh-huh.
Job stacking, right? Where you
Yeah.
see employees taking two corporate jobs or maintaining two jobs at once with in traditionally full-time salaried positions. Now,
Wow.
this is against the rules. I know that this is not how we should be operating. I understand why employers don't like it. The reason I'm excited about it is because it's a way that employees are shifting the power balance, right? We know we're
Mm,
out of balance and
mm,
there needs to be action. And I see this as an organic action that employees are taking to take up more space, to have more advocacy for themselves. And so ultimately, I think it will change. It will evolve how people are able to earn more for themselves or have more space in their days. But it's a really interesting sign that employees are taking back their power in some way.
yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Another one is neuroscience.
Mm,
I'm right now, I'm in this neuroscience of change course through Coaches Rising. Highly recommend Coaches Rising. And I think that more and more emerges out of this space and helps us understand uniquely what's going on in the body as we go through, in this
mm,
example, change
mm,
or growth.
mhm.
And so many of the practices, so many things that we have done over the years that others have maybe labeled as woo woo or a little too soft, we're now able to back up with some really hard evidence of why they're important. And so I love seeing that our field is evolving in that way and what neuroscience can bring to our field. So those are a couple. I mean, I have several
Wow.
more, but those are just
I
a few.
I love both of them, and I wonder if you could talk a bit more about, specifically in this part of neuroscience that I'm also digging in on it. So, what
Yes.
are you finding?
So the first course stuck with me the very most, which is, in order to have transformation in your life, you
Hmm.
need two ingredients. The first is presence, and they go through presence and talk about presence as being space,
Mm.
time to put your body and your mind in a different space and be present, just like you and I are right now.
Yeah.
And the other one is really focused on experiential learning.
Hmm.
So instead of, for example, in our coaching practice, just talking about theory or digesting why things have happened in somewhat of like a talk therapy format, instead actually putting people into experiences. And so I've done this in a couple ways. One, having my coachees go out and experiment with drastically new behaviors and debrief it. In the
Hmm.
neuroscience course, they really talk about this as embodiment. So a
Yeah.
lot of embodiment work and
Mm.
all of the knowing that we have
Yeah.
in our body. And it is where change happens. So they talk a lot about how when it comes to behavioral change, it can't be here, it can't be neck up. It
Hmm.
actually lives in our body. So that example I gave about financial security, for me
Yeah.
to shift that perspective, I actually have to do some embodiment work. It's not all here. So
Hmm.
it's just fascinating. I'm in this multi-week course and eating it up. And so if you know me or
Yeah.
you're working with me, just be ready. It's coming into your coaching. It's fun.
That's beautiful and that's relevant. So, are you using this kind of embodiment in your personal and professional uh, transformation that you do with companies and organizations?
I'm
Are you
working on
organic?
it now. The reason I think it's so profound for me is because it's
Uh-huh.
my biggest gap. It is
Ah,
my biggest gap in my own growth. I think again, I'm a neck up person. I try to think and feel my way kind of through everything, but I'm often out of my body in my own
Yeah.
experiences. So it's a growth area for me. And so I'm
Mm.
really working on practicing it for myself in so that I feel like I can, I'm practicing what I preach, but I'm designing right now a couple of ways to bring it forward. I'm bringing it forward, for example, with a C-suite group right now that's working on team dynamics and
Uh-huh.
needs to let go of some old ways of treating one another. So I will have a report on that in about a month. I'm experimenting with
Okay.
that in about a month.
So we will talk about it in our next call when
Yeah,
we see each other. Will be looking forward to hear from it.
that's right.
Yeah, it's true because sometimes we are too focused on our head and
Mhm.
our body is sending us signals and we are not listening to it. So that's relevant to start listening our body and incorporating this embodiment towards our practices. That makes a total change. Yeah,
That's
I love
right.
it.
Have you ever had an experience like that where you learned something from your body in your work or
Yeah. Well, thinking about it, the other day I was talking about that with some friends. And you know that sometimes you have like an intuition that your body is sensing and is telling you something.
Hmm.
In fact, to be very personal also, but when my father died, uh, I was, I had the urge to be close to him. And I didn't know when he was going to die, but he was very ill. So that day, I had the urge to go to my family house, and I slept there. And it was like the body was telling me I had to be there, So it was like I changed everything, and I said, no, tonight I want to be there. And at night I get up, and I was just side by side with him. And I am sharing that because it was really beautiful to me
So
to
beautiful.
say goodbye to him and to be close to him. And well, I'm getting a bit emotional now, but it's like, wow, that was like, I was thinking about that it was like my body was telling to me,
Hmm.
go there. So I was having like the
Hmm.
urge to go to my parents' house and stay there. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but it just that I was having like this urge, and
Yeah.
I was feeling like it was like my body telling me, go, 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 you have to go, right? So there's
Yes.
those moments that you are sensing, like, that's why I'm saying I'm linking it to the body, because it's like you are sensing something is going on. And
Mhm. Well, and you're reliving it right now. So I'm curious, do you recognize where you feel it in your body right now as you talk about that experience with your dad?
mm, very much in my heart. Yeah,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
much. And
Mhm.
I'm thank you for asking, because this is like, it can sound like a very sad moment, and it is for sure. But for me, was I was so delighted to be just close to him when he was living, that it was really a moment that I was thinking, wow, that's the moment that I was like sensing it, and that
Mhm.
sense was not coming from my head. That
Right.
sense was coming from my body, that was telling me and was giving me a good advice that I need
Mhm.
to go to where my parents were living, that was not close by where I was living. So I had to make some kind of travel before going. So yeah,
It's amazing. It's amazing that you were able to listen, right?
yeah,
Because many times our body is sending us important messages and we turn it off because
totally.
it's not logical, right? Or for whatever reason. So that is something I'm really working on and
Yeah,
trying to bring to others is having that awareness and remembering what those feelings are like so that when
totally.
they emerge again, you can tap back into them or identify new ones more deeply.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I'm trying to do, Barbara, now is when eating, you
Mm,
know, eating slowly and
mm,
really tasting what you are eating. Sometimes we are always in a rush, and we
yes.
are like, okay, I need to eat because I need to have some food, and just that. But when you are really sensing and tasting the food that you are eating, even it's just a piece of chocolate, so it doesn't
Yes.
need to be like the big food that you are eating, but it's just like really taking your time to really sense, and with the tasting or even the smelling, those are senses that we need to develop much more, and it's very linked to that. So
I love that. That is a really good way to practice. I enjoy cooking very much.
yeah,
Especially when you're on the computer all day, getting
yeah,
up and chopping. I mean, but you're so right. When I take that meal and I approach it with as much love as I put into making it, instead of
yeah,
just getting it down, right? I think that is a really great way
yeah,
of practicing the noticing of not only the joy that you experience, but also what it feels like to consume nutritious food, what it feels
yeah,
like to take that space. I think that's a fabulous example of how to practice
yeah,
being more in tune with your
yeah.
body.
I love how the conversation has evolved. So that's
I
exactly
know.
what I wanted from this podcast.
You and
Uh,
me, of
yeah,
course.
it's like I'm really having joy, and to have just this, as we are the two of us talking, and really having good fun out of it. So, Barbara, tell us more about your personal aspects. So, could you share with us a guilty pleasure
Mm.
when it comes to self care of relaxations? What do you do?
Now, okay, let's see. So, like I mentioned, I'm really working on this embodiment work. I have been working over the last 3 years so very hard on my stress management skills.
Yeah.
I am highly stress prone, like many humans. If you do Hogan, have you ever done the Hogan assessment?
Yes, I
You've
did.
done it, okay. You know, one of the first
Months
scales is
ago. I don't.
adjust
I
adjustment, right? Mine
Yeah,
is like a 6 or something out of 100. It's just
yeah.
I've got no chill. My partner says I have as much chill in my whole body as he has in his thumbnail. So I have to work really hard at cultivating chill. So one of the ways that I do it, I know it's sad, but it's so true. I'm working on it all the time. One of the ways that I do it is such a guilty, but some days, at least probably once a month, maybe every other week, I will fully work from my bed. So I'll be like, sorry, my video's not working. Something's wrong with my computer or whatever it is. And I
Whatever.
will lay in bed from 7 a.m. until dinner time.
Great. That's the best.
Right? I
I
mean,
love
I
it.
exercise, I try to eat healthy. I do all the things that human beings do, but some days I don't want to
Yeah.
look cute. I don't want to have to care what people think of me. I'm not going to cancel my day, but I'm going to do it from bed.
I love it. I will copy it, Barbara.
If we ever have a call and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, my video is
Yeah,
not working." Now I've been
you are
outed.
in
I've been revealed.
the other day, that I was in Korea, and
Yes.
it was fantastic because I was working for HP and some women leaders. And
Yes.
I that was very interesting to see the differences on women leaderships. And one of the things that they were telling to me is that they are struggling to have the camera on.
Oh, really? Now
So
is it a norm that they're not expected to have it on or what?
well, that no. Sometimes you can have it off, but the fact was that they wanted to have the camera on with all the people that was in the meeting room.
Hmm.
So I was thinking now that maybe it's you that it's on the other side and you are not turning on your camera. So
Yes, it's good awareness. I'm one of those people. I also like to be camera on. I think it's a better way to be engaged.
yeah,
The tough
totally.
part is if we do meetings all day, it's so draining. It's so draining. So
Totally.
I definitely advocate for the phone call when we can. But when we're facilitating a session and there's
Tot-
some virtual aspect, the camera plays a huge role.
Good, good. So, and Barbara, just last but not least,
Yes.
what's the advice that you would give to your younger self?
Mm.
Mm.
You might imagine that my younger self was a very good time.
I
I
can
have been
imagine.
spending this whole life having a great time. So I'm not a big regrets person. I don't have many regrets in my life. I have made many mistakes, things that are embarrassing, absolutely, but I don't take anything back. I've learned so much from them. But I think I would say, don't try to take the easy way out. Move through the hard stuff, figure it out, but also don't take it so seriously, because there's going to be a mountain of hard stuff to move through. It never stops. It's not like one day things are easy, that there's this beautiful point in the future where all of a sudden life is stable and totally predictable, and it's just not reality. So move through the hard stuff, don't seek the easy way out, and don't take it so seriously.
Don't. I mean,
Oh,
it's so much you, Barbara. It's
right?
like I cannot think about a better advice coming from you.
I have to tell myself every day, though, don't take it
Yeah,
so seriously.
that's great. So, thank you so much, Barbara. It was great listening to you and listening your insights. It has been wonderful to have you here. You know how much I appreciate it, and I am really honored to have you as our guest here in this episode. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Our work paths, but more importantly, our friendship
Yeah,
means the world to me. And I just know it the second that we met, that we were made to be friends and to support each other. So I'm cheering
yeah,
you on every day.
yeah. And you know, I feel it as much as you feel it. So there is this connection that is there, and I'm so proud about you, about what you do, about who you are. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today in this episode of Let's Design Change, the Bloom Mood podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Niubo. And don't forget to subscribe. And I will look forward to hearing you very soon. So see you soon.